Okay, so in this lesson in Cinema 4D, we are going to talk about something a little bit strange, a little bit different, a little bit maybe amazing, uh, challenging, weird. I'm making a big deal out of it because I think it's kind of a big deal and it's going to be pretty involved. But we're going to talk today about something called Mograph. It started originally as an idea to do motion graphics inside of Cinema 4D. It has a bunch of tools that allow you to do what's considered motion graphics, but now, today, I think it's really just a bunch of cool different things and a different way of animating and modeling and creating things inside of Cinema 4D. So we're going to look at it. Now, I will warn you, in my previous lessons, I've been trying to cover things comprehensively, but Mograph is so involved that I don't know if I can touch everything that Mograph does, and honestly, I'm not even sure if I know everything that Mograph does, but we're going to get started with a couple ideas here. So you'll see in Mograph, we have the Mograph cloner and the matrix and the fracture and the Voronoi fracture and the Mo instance and the Mo tracer and the Mo spline. And, that's just for starters. There's a ton of controls in there. And then there's effectors, which will have all these effectors over here. And then there's Mo extrude and poly effects and different ways of controlling weight and all these kind of things. It's going to get pretty involved, but we're going to start really simply with some of my basic ideas of how the Mograph tools work. But I'm going to go to a different place. Over here, you have the text controls, and this creates a text spline. If you click on this and hit text, you'll make a text spline, and you could say, for example, you could extrude this text spline, put this spline into an extrusion and extrude the text spline and make text like there. But that's not really the fun way of making text. The more fun way of making text is with this text control here. Just hold down and choose this text that's already seems extruded, and it makes this text. This actually, in old versions of Cinema 4D, used to be called MoText, but now it's just called text, and it's just a control here that is text that's extruded. And there's some basic text controls. You can go in here and change the depth of the text, make it longer. You can change the subdivisions of the text. So if I hit N and B, I can look at the subdivisions and add more subdivisions. Or I can say, I'll just leave this at 1. We can change the actual text that says good times. Once you click away, it automatically programs that in. We'll go here and see good times here. And we'll go back to text there like so. We'll kind of rotate this around and take a look at how this text is in here. And look at this here. And then in the text controls, you'll see that we also have abilities to change the font. So you can go in here and change some of the font types to something else, maybe like Source Code Pro or something like that, or if you had some kind of favorite font. There's all these different fonts here. Quicksand, bam, oh, crazy font. Anyway, there's a bunch of controls here that we can manipulate and change around and do some kind of cool stuff there. Command R looks like that. Some weird fonts that I don't necessarily like. Maybe Quicksand isn't the way to go. Maybe we'll do something really simple. Orbitron. Oh, I do love Orbitron. Let's go to Orbitron. Yeah, it's a good looking font there. Command R. There's my Orbitron font. Fantastic. We're going to move that over. Hit the H key just so it's there. You can change some of the alignment of the text. We'll put this to middle align text. This is a lot like After Effects or more even like Photoshop. So it does put the anchor point at the bottom of the text there. You'll also see some horizontal spacing of the letters, vertical spacing. If you have multiple lines of text, you can space those out that way. There's a height control to make this text bigger. This is what's considered the scale of the text. So we can leave this at 200, I guess, and leave it there. So that's basically the scale of text. And some other controls there. You can go to here to caps controls and add caps to text. So if you want to add some caps to or no caps, you can turn the caps off, leave it hollow text, or turn the caps back on and then add some bevel to the text. And you could add some bevel that has some bevel dimensions, change the subdivisions. So NB, so you can see the subdivisions there. You can change the number of subdivisions. You could even change this from a rounded text, a rounded bevel to a step bevel, which would be kind of NA. Let me just show you. So now we have stair steps there, little stair steps to our bevel. We have 6 of these. We'll change this to less. We'll go here to maybe just like 2, and then you have, text that has some steps to it. Or you can even make your own kind of bevel. You could actually go here and say, let's go to spline controls. We'll scroll down here to spline controls. We can grab this whole spline and, change the shape of this to be some kind of a weird, S pattern or something like that. Or hit command and hit additional points here and make whatever kind of weird shape you want to. You probably want to add more subdivisions so we have some ability to have some curves. Look at those curves though. I mean, that's kind of cool. Maybe some more points. I'm just gonna make it crazy just to show you that we can do this. And this is all just with the text. We're not even talking about the Mograph controls here. Now we have this kind of weird shape here. We'll add some more subdivisions so we can really see how this looks. Oh yeah, that's kind of crazy. So you can make any kind of, designed text you want there. Amazing. We're going to go back to just a good old-fashioned roundedness. We'll make this a bit small, just like a 3. There we have a little bit of rounding to the text. Excellent. We'll hit the H key. We'll see the text in its entirety. So we have the text here like so. Great. Okay. So over here, you'll see a section that says all effects, line effects, words effects, and then letters effects. And we want to look at letters effects here. So I want to look at letters effects and show you some bit how about this works. How about this works? That does make sense. Anyway, we're going to go here to text, and we're going to go here to the Mograph controls. And inside the Mograph controls, you will see effectors. And these are effectors. There's one called plain. There's one called delay, formula, inheritance, push part, Python, random, effect. There's all these different effectors. Man, I don't even know. I'm not even sure if I know what all these effectors do, but they're all kinds of crazy, and they're all interesting. The most common one is the plain effector. And you'll see that right over here as well. So if you want to look for the effector controls, right here is the plain effector. We can apply the plain effector. So if we're clicking the text, and we hit the plain effector, it's going to jump this text and put this text up in the air. So now the text is jumped up in the air. So now let's look at what this effector does. This effector will affect the letters. So we're on the text and we're affecting the letters with this plain effector. And this plain effector just says, hey, it's a simple plain effector. It has a strength control. We can make this more or less, but let's look at the parameters of what it's doing. So here in the text, we have the ability to control the text in general, with the coordinates. But here with the plain effector, we can say, hey, we're going to control the letters, each letter individually. Well, right now the parameters say, hey, this is taking the position of this and taking the position, putting the Y position up 100 centimeters. And if I change this here to 200 centimeters, it'll make it higher in the air, and now it's putting it there. But that's just doing it to the whole word. Is it doing it to each individual letter? Yeah, it sort of is. And if you've ever worked with like text animators inside of After Effects, this is much like the same thing inside of here. So let's take a look at what we can do in terms of controls. So we're going to go here to say 100. We'll leave it there. We'll go to rotation. We'll turn on the rotation control. And in the rotation control, we'll say, hey, let's rotate this on the heading this much. We'll rotate it 45 degrees, positively 45 degrees. Now, each letter is rotated 45 degrees. It ends up looking like this. We're going to separate the letters out a little bit more so you can see a little bit more. Maybe we'll rotate it a little bit more. We'll take the letters and take the horizontal spacing and open it up a little bit so you can see that each letter is there. We'll go to the plain effector here and say, okay, we're going to rotate this maybe 65 degrees. There, now the letters are totally sideways. Okay, we have the letters like there, and we have them kind of in that screen. They look like that. Looks cool. All right, so cool. We're also going to say scale. We'll go to scale, turn on the scale control here. So the scale control, turn that on. Now we have an X, Y, and Z scale. We're going to change this to uniform scaling. That way we don't have to touch the X, Y, and Z separately. We'll just have one scale to rule them all. And we're going to change this to negative 0.5, which means it's going to be smaller. So now all these things have been affected by this plain effector. And this plain effector has affected all the letters, individually in the letters, and made them all smaller. Rotated on the heading 65 degrees, and they're 100 centimeters up in the air. They're like there. And so now we have these controls that can control all these letters. But what's really cool about a text animator, say in After Effects, for example, is that you have stuff like a range selector. And in this, we don't have a range selector right here yet. And so we're going to look here and go to this section in the plain effector. There's an area over here called fields. And in fields, it'll bring up different fields. And you can add multiple fields into here. And this is where it gets really complicated. So take some time, take a deep breath. We're going to work through it slowly. The most simple kind of field is something called a linear field. And we can create a linear field, and it's going to go like this. We're going to apply this to the plain effector. It's going to put something called a linear field on here. It's going to look like this. We're going to say linear field and say boom, and it puts it like there. Okay, what's it doing right now? It created this little thing right here, this little control inside of here. And this little control is a linear field. This linear field, it looks like a little TIE fighter, doesn't it? You ever watch Star Wars? It looks like a little TIE fighter, or some kind of target system in the, on the ship or something, some kind of weird thing. Looks like there. Anyway, I like it. It has a control that I can make this bigger or smaller. This is what's called the field length. So here you have a field length. You can increase or decrease the field length. We're going to make this super small and make this tiny little length here. And I want to show you what this does. What this says is that everything on this side of it is being affected, and everything on this side of it is not being affected. So this side is the unaffected, and this side is the affected. So now this field can move here and say, not affected, not affected, not affected, not affected, not affected, or affected, 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 affected. And so I can pull this left or right and have this have an effect. But this length, the length is really small, so there's not like a field length here. If you look at the effector here, it's at 100% strength, but I want to look at the field here. Sorry, let's look at the field. And the field has this control that says remapping, and the remapping says completely unaffected to completely affected. And this is how it moves. This is the strength. It goes from 0 to 100, and it goes up to here and has this remapping control. So here, if we go back to the field and adjust the length to be wider, it's going to be wider. Now, one of the things it does here, we can make this even wider, like this. One of the things it does here, it has a color remapping, which I don't necessarily need right now. It's just a visual. Once you put materials on it, it doesn't really matter. It's just to help you understand what's happening. But we're going to say no remapping here, so we don't change the color, just so we kind of takes that out of the equation. Now here, as I move to here onto this side, everything on this side is affected. Everything on this side is not affected. Affected, not affected. Affected, not affected. And so this linear field says I can control this range by either making this range bigger, smaller, and I can also move this range to grab how this thing affects, etc. So there's some controls that I have here to kind of change how this thing attributes. And we can animate this. So we can have this be, say, here, it's, well, let's turn this around. Let's do it this way. Let's say, or maybe we'll leave it like that. We'll leave it here, and we'll say the linear field, the coordinates here, we'll have it over here. And then maybe 48 frames later, we'll have it over here. And now it's this animation. We'll program this in, keyframe this, boom, and we have that action going on. So now we have this animating in, and it goes like this, boom, like there. Now, we could change the size of the field. Actually, we make it a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit more gradual. So the size of the field is going to affect the gradualness. Look at that. That's a little nice, cool animation. Good times. Anyway, that's some cool motion graphic stuff that we could do, and this is why it falls in the category of Mograph. Anyway, so some things we can do there. So let's go a little bit crazier. Let's say we're going to add another effector. We're going to go here to effectors, and I'm going to choose the effectors here. And in here, I'm going to choose the random effector and grab the random effector. And that's going to say, let's make these things random. Well, how does it make them random? Well, it's going to make them random. Let's see, in position. Well, let's do this. Let's go back to the plane effector, and let's turn off the rotation controls. So it's not being changed rotationally here. And then we're going to take the random effector and say the random effector is not going to be affected. So the parameters of the random effector is not going to randomize position. We don't want it to randomize position. We want position to be the plane effector to control position. So the plane effector is controlling position and scale. The random effector is now going to control rotation. And we're going to say, let's rotate these up to 180. 180 on the heading, 180 on the pitch, and 180 on the bank. And so we have this, now they're rotating in a random position. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to the plane effector and say, instead of being negative 0.5, which would only be, it'd be half as small, we're going to say -1, and just that means they're invisible. Now, what that means is that when these things come around, they kind of arrive, they erupt, kind of, they grow from nothing to big, but now they're totally still random. So I don't have any control that says to make them unrandom or to make them random. Now, if I wanted to, I could go to the random effector, and I could add its own field. I could say, go to fields, and say, let's add a linear field in here. And I would add a linear field that says, hey, this field will control whether it's random or not random, and have that controlling the randomness here. But, well, we'd have to have it be visible first. So this would control the randomness, and we could unrandom and randomness. And now we have two fields. But we could do something different. We could say, forget that. Let's forget that. Let's delete that field. And what we could do is we could go to the random, and here's a trick. There's no field in here. It says double-click to create a new field. We could double-click and create a linear field. We could do that. Or we could say, let's take this linear field and drag this into here. And then boom, it's the same field. So it's using one field to control both how the plane is adjusting. So think about this. The text letters, we'll break this down really simple, really slowly. The text letters are being controlled by both the plane and the random effector. Both the plane and the random effector are being controlled by this linear field. And this linear field, the plane is saying, go up in the air and be shrunk down to nothing. The random effector is just saying, hey, randomly tweak the letters around in some random order. So now we say, okay, in here, as this thing animates, it comes in like this. Bam. That's a cool animation. Look at that. That's like, boom, it comes in weird letters. Anyway, so now we have some control to there. And that's because the text works with the same Mograph controls, the same effectors. that other Mograph tools exist. So let's take a look. Let's take a look and explore other Mograph tools. It looks like here with this linear field, we hit this 48 frames. We didn't go off full enough off the screen. So maybe we want to go and grab this linear field a little bit more. We missed the S. I feel like we need to grab it there and change the coordinates there so it came off fully. That was a little bit better. Now the text comes in like this. We have this going on to come in there. So it's getting pretty complicated. And that's only like a fraction of the things that we could possibly do with this. There's a whole bunch of more ideas of ways we could play with this and ways to manipulate this, playing with this idea of these effectors, these Mograph stuff, and also these fields. And there's even more fields than just a linear field. Let's make a new workspace here. We're going to go here and say, let's do Command N and make another one here. And we're going to say here, cool, let's take another new one here. And we're going to work with a different Mograph tool. We're going to work with my favorite Mograph tool, the Mograph cloner. And that makes a cloner. And the cloner looks like this. It has coordinates. So it has coordinates, it has basic controls, but then it has object controls. And it's looking for an object. So let's grab an object and let's grab something simple. We're going to grab a box here. We're going to grab a box here. I'm going to make the box like a little shoe box. We're going to go here, make it smaller. Maybe make it smaller this way. Break it down, really simple. And I'm going to make this editable. I'm going to hit the C key. And I'm going to say, let's take this and make a shoebox here. Just around, we'll take the face. I'll use the inset tool, I key for the inset tool. We're going to bring in, inset this a little bit, just pull this way and inset this a little bit. And then we're going to hit the D key for the extrude tool. And we're going to inset it like there. And so we're just going to bring it down to there, make a shoebox like there. So now we have a little shoebox there. We can even put a little texture on my shoebox. We'll go here to my shoebox. We'll go into materials. Maybe we'll grab a standard material of like a wooden box, a little wooden box there. We'll grab like an ash shader, something really simple. Cool. We'll bring that in here, and we'll put that on the cube. And now we're into the cube, which is going to have a shoebox thing, have a shoebox look to it. Great, looks fantastic. We'll close this out. We'll close this out. Now we have a shoebox. Okay, so I'm into my shoebox, and I'm going to put it into a cloner. We're going to drag this into the cloner, and it's going to make a clone of this. It made a whole bunch of shoeboxes. Amazing, a bunch of shoeboxes here. Let's take a look at the cloner. Okay, the cloner did a grid cloning, and the cloner said, iterate these clones as the distance is based on each instance, and it has a count of 3 by 1 by 3. So it's 3x, 1 by y, and 3 by z. So it's 3 by 1 by 3, and they're 200 centimeters apart. So we can move the x further apart. We can move the z further apart and have them be more separated. There we go. Looks nicer. And we could have them be more. We could have 5 by 5 by 5, or 5 by 1 by 5. Yeah, I don't think I want any kind of vertical axis. I just want it to be on the horizontal axis. Whoops. 5 by 1 by 5. Sorry, I made this. Go back to 200 there. Cool. We're going to go here and say E key, and then we're going to say H and make this here. Okay, so now we have this cube. We have these little boxes here like so. So we made a cloner. Great, we've made a cloner. Now we could say, okay, let's look at the cloner and say, I don't know, let's go to the cloner and we'll add another effector. And we'll start simple. We'll start relatively simple. We'll go to Mograph, go to effectors, and go to my plane effector. Here's my plane effector. And that's going to put all these boxes up in the air. Well, now I can say, cool, let's put all these in the air. And let's say the plane effector, I don't know, the effector, the parameters and controls, it puts it up in the air and it rotates it on the pitch this way. So now these are like there. And then again, we can go in here and add a field and add a linear field, which means half of these are upright and half these are not upright. So now it comes up, boom, goes up like there, and we can animate this and have this. So the same thing we were doing with the letters, the same idea that we were doing with letters, we can move it like there. Or we could say, you know what, let's get rid of the plane effector and let's use, in here, we'll go into a random effector and grab a random effector and say, okay, now they're randomly adjusted, and we're going to have them randomly adjusted. The parameters can be not by position. We're going to just randomly adjust the rotation. And we're going to say, rotate the heading. So they're all kind of in different combinations, maybe the pitch and the bank, and now they're all different kind of arrangements there. And we could have this come in like something where they're all kind of messy, or kind of beat up and messy in a kind of a messy order. And then there's going to be something that comes by and cleans them all up. So this field is going to come by and clean them all up. So it's going to be completely messy. And then something comes along and straightens these all out. And so we can have this animate come to straighten all out. Bam, like there. We could do something like that. So that's, again, another idea of a way that we could play this and have this be jumbled inside of here and do that and straighten them all out. Or we could change scale, or we could change that. And again, that's the random effector. If you don't like the random order, we could change the random order. Let's try something different. We're going to go here and get rid of the cube, and we're going to try something a little bit more complicated. We're going to go here and say, let's go to another object, and I'm going to grab in a model of a chair. Let's grab a really simple chair. Just kind of a really basic chair, something that's really not that complicated. This little, maybe this little dining chair here. Yeah, this looks pretty simple. We'll make these little chair here. We'll just bring in a chair. Bring in this chair. So run this dining chair here. Great, we have a chair here. So I'm going to take this chair, and I'm going to put this into a cloner. It's going to make clones of this. Okay, a bunch of clones here. And we want to say, instead of the cloner here, we're going to say instead of a grid, you could do different versions. So you could do a linear grid, which will put these on top of each other. That way we could do a count, separate them by distance, and have multiple chairs here. Now they're separated on the y-axis and have a count there. You could do it per step there, like that. You could do a grid. We did a grid before. We could do a radial. We could have chairs in a row, in a circle, change the radius of the circle, and have a bunch of chairs, more chairs, a round group of chairs. Excellent. You could change the start angle and the end angle of the chairs. Again, there's so much stuff we could go over of how these chairs work and how they're lined up, etc. We could even go here into a honeycomb array. Honeycomb array looks like a grid, but the grid is separated out so that it's they're alternating, so they're not even with each other. They're offset 50%. Let's put this in the XZ axis, so it's on the ground. Now we have like kind of a group of chairs, like a conference. We're gonna change the size width to maybe like 200, so they're closer, and change the size height to 200. It's just width and height, but it really just means the two axes, the X and the Z. And we're gonna change. So we have 10 by 10 chairs here, and so we're gonna make this more chairs. We're gonna make this like 20 by 20. Cool. Hopefully I don't cause any crashing or anything, because I'm putting a lot of chairs in here. Look at all these chairs. Whole mess of chairs. Okay, so now I have this in a cloner. So great, I have this set up here in a cloner. It's working. Okay, so let's look at the cloner, and let's say we're going to do something more complicated. I know, more complicated, more complicated, more complicated. We're going to go in here and say, let's go Mograph, and let's say effectors. We're going to go to a random effector. And in the random effectors, we're going to say, okay, now that's going to randomize all these. And these are randomized by parameter, by position. Let's do a random position. Let's do it not in the Y position, so they don't go up in the air. They're all going to be here in the ground. They're going to be like this. But we're going to say that they're all going to be randomized really far on the X-axis, really far on the Z-axis, really separated a whole bunch, separated a whole bunch on the axis. And then here, we're also going to say randomize the rotation. And so they're going to rotate in random different positions, random different ways. So now they're going to be all kinds of randomized, boom, like so. Okay, so now we have these whole randomized group of chairs. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say these chairs came in and they all got destroyed by this big wind that came by, or this big something that hit them, maybe something that hit them. That'd be fun. So Command R, man, this is going to be really, look at all these mess of chairs. Mess of chairs here. A little small. We'll make this a little bit smaller. Let's go to the cloner, and we'll just go to a less number of chairs, because I really don't want to overwhelm myself here. I just want to make 10 chairs. Great. All right, so we're going to go here to the random effector. This gets really weird and complicated. I'm trying to work really simply, but it gets heavy. All right, let's take a look. We're going to add a linear field here. We're going to say a linear field. And so here we have chairs that are in good, we have chairs that are in good shape, and then chairs that are a mess. We're going to take this and we're going to rotate this, because we want to say rotate this. We want them to start out in good shape and then be wrecked. So we're going to rotate them 180 degrees. Cool. And then it's going to be facing this way. So it's going to start at good chairs and then destroyed chairs. So here, boom, these get destroyed. So say, for example, we had, I don't know, some kind of like a block or something. We'll have a block that's like this, and it's a block like there. And we're going to put this block right here. And we're going to animate the block to say, how about the block starts here, this cube, and coordinates starts here, and then over 72 frames, it goes to here, and we'll program this in, boom. And so now it's doing this animation, going from here to here. Excellent. We're going to take this linear field, and we're going to put it as a child of the cube. That way it's going to follow the cube. That way when the cube moves, it's going to go through and just destroy these chairs. Look at that. Oh, I'm going to zoom in and get a little closer. Oh, man, it's fun to watch. Just destroys those chairs. Bam. Just wrecked them. Just knocked them all over the place. Bam. I mean, there's some more we could do. We could make it look more real, but that's, it's gamey. It's kind of playful. It's a thing we could do. But that's that idea of that linear field that we're changing, we're randomizing the position on the x and the z, and we're randomizing the rotation based on linear field. And the linear field is attached to the cube, and so when the cube moves, it moves that, and we can do that to the clone. But there's so many more things we could do. There's so many more games we could play. Let's go a step further. We're going to start over again. We're going to get rid of this random. We're going to start here. Let's just delete all this. Goodbye. Goodbye, all this. Cool. We're going to go here, and I'm going to grab something symbols because we're going to look at some other deformers, or not deformers, but we're going to look at some other effectors and see things we can do. Let's grab in some a capsule here. We'll grab a capsule. We'll make it skinny. Skinny little capsule. Make a little, like a little Mike and Ike. Is that right? Mike and Ike's? Those were those little candies, right? Cool. We're going to take this. We're going to go here, in here, and we're going to take this capsule, and we're going to put this in a cloner. And we're going to take a cloner, put the capsule in the cloner. It's going to make a cloner like this. Great. We're going to say object. We're going to put this in, in the cloner object. The cloner, we're going to put this into a honeycomb array, which is going to put it like there, boom, and make these there. Now, what I want to do is I want to turn these sideways. So I'm going to go here to the transform controls of these, and on the pitch, I'm going to turn these 90 degrees this way. So they're facing this way, even though they're kind of a flat wall like this. So just H key. Okay, so we have this here. We'll come out there like so. We're going to take these. We're going to go to object controls. Instead of 10, we're going to do 20 by 20. This is really simple. And we're going to make this a little bit smaller. So the size width will only be like this big, and the size height will only be like this. So they're going to be kind of all on top of each other. We're going to make this really small. So they're really on top of each other. Maybe we'll make this like 30 by 30, I think, just so we have something bigger to work with. So we have a 30 by 30. Great. And so we'll take this and we'll go here and make this we'll make this wall here. This wall of stuff. So we have these walls of shapes here. Amazing. Cool. I feel like we want to almost put a background in here just so we have something. Like a physical sky in here, just so we have something to put around our world here. Some texture there. I don't know. It's fun. Anyway, we'll zoom in a little bit so we get a little bit closer. Excellent. Put this like there. All right, so let's look at things we can do. So as an idea of what we can do, we're going to go here to the cloner, and inside the cloner, we're going to go to effectors. Make sure you click on the cloner, and we're going to add a cloner, and we will add a Mograph effector, and we'll look at here, and we can go to the other effectors. They can do all kinds of effectors. We're going to start simple, and we'll go with like the shader effector. And the shader effector is going to say, hey, this is going to affect the parameters of the scale and make the scale smaller. Well, let's not do that. Let's affect position. We'll do this way. We'll affect position. Affect position, and we're going to say affect position on the z-axis to be, well, let's do it on the y-axis here. I just want to go forward or backwards. So we're going to go forward up 150 centimeters. Okay, but now that's going to be based on a shader. Okay, so what's the shader? Well, we have no shader. So let's add a shader. Let's say, for example, we'll add something like a gradient. Yeah, a gradient. And so the gradient will look like this. So the gradient goes from black to white. And white means it's being affected. Black means it's not being affected. So right now, if you look here, we'll look underneath this. It's being affected this way. It's looking at this gradient saying, hey, it's being affected to form this at fully white moves as 100. If we go back to the shader's parameter and say, hey, let's move this to more, we can have a more gradual adjustment here and have this moved like this. Now, we could go back to the shader and say, hey, instead of just this gradient, let's just make this gradient more drastic. Now it's going to be more one to the other, a very tight gradient. Now this gradient is only changing in here, and so it's gradation is only happening in there. Or we could even say, let's go between here and here. So now it's a more gradual gradient. We could even say, let's add some more points here. We'll take points here. We'll change the point color to say, we'll make this one white. We'll make this one black. And now we have this, so we're adjusting the scale based on how much black versus white there is. Where it's white, there is an adjustment to the scale. When it's black, it's not adjusting the scale. And we have that control inside of there. If we wanted to, we could even go more complicated. We could say, let's get rid of this gradient. So this gradient is okay. This is the shader gradient across here. Let's go back here and say, instead of the gradient shader, let's go to something like surfaces checkerboard. We'll go to surfaces checkerboard. And now the checkerboard is saying, hey, make our gradient look like this based on this. Let's even say here, sorry, let's say here, we'll go back to the shader and we'll make the checkerboard less. We'll make it like 4 by 4, 4 by 4. And now you're seeing this, its gradient is being separated by units that look like this. We can even go smaller, make this 2 by 2. And now you're seeing these sections basically. So where it's white, it's gradientizing, and where it's black, it's not gradientizing. You get the idea. So you have this kind of setup like there, and this is a shader. So the shader is deciding how this is being controlled, and the shader is saying, hey, maybe within the shader it's being scaled up and then or positioned moving forward, and it's rotated on the pitch this way. So now we can actually really see what the heck's really going on here. We have this kind of setup like there. So it's some individual controls. Why would you use this? I'm not sure that you might, or you might. It might be a useful thing, but there's some other games we can play here. If we went to our shader and said, hey, let's go to our shading, and instead of a checkerboard pattern, we chose load an image. We could actually load an image in here. Let's see if we can do something here. I have in this L1 workflow folder, I have this AFC logo. It's basically just a logo here. That says AFC. It's a black and white logo, so that's kind of cool. We can do this logo here and say, open this. I'm just going to ask us if we want to save it somewhere else. No, we're going to save it here. And now in here, this logo is defining, this image is defining based on this shader. It's using, the effector is using the parameter of the color. Or sorry, in shading, it says the strength is using the grayscale. So it's using the grayscale amount to define what the shader is. Now, does this look like AFC? Not really. It's not really making the AFC logo here. Let's see if we can do this a little bit better. Let's see if we can take the shader. We're going to go to parameters, turn off the rotation so we have a little bit easier to read. I don't know. Does that look like AF? Maybe sideways. We may be looking at it sideways. Depending on how the position of the shader goes on. Sometimes you have to switch the shader the positioning of how it's written out in here. We can edit the image and then edit it somewhere else and then change it, and then based on there we can make the shading. Or we just might say, let's make more clones, and we'll see if we get better results. We'll change the clones. We'll make more clones. Okay, we're getting some. Oh, look at that. We're getting, so I can sort of see in here, I don't know if you can see that. I can change these closer. It looks like we're seeing AFC upside down, I think. Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah, there's your AFC. It's upside down. So it's upside down and backwards. It's that way, and we'd have to rotate it around somewhere. But we're sort of seeing the AFC cut out there. So we're seeing that kind of effect of, with those clones, cutting out the AFC. And that's kind of how it works. That's kind of the dimensionality of that. So there, so we could create this kind of, there. So we'd have to flip it around in there. But, thing we can do with a shader, with the shader effector. We'll go here. And now let's play a game. Let's go here. We're gonna go to view frame default here. Good old frame default. It feels better. Let's go here and let's try something again. So I really like that idea of playing with those capsules. We'll take the capsule, make it smaller again. And we're going to go here and we're going to say cloner. Except for this cloner, we're going to choose, instead of a grid, we're going to choose an object-based clone. Now, the object-based clone is fun because what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's put this around an object. So we're going to take a sphere. We're going to take a sphere here. And we're going to sphere, let's look at this. We'll add some more segments to the sphere. We'll add 32 segments. Cool, make it rounder. We'll make it a little bit bigger. And the sphere looks like this. So if you hit NB, the sphere looks like that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say the cloner is going to be based on the sphere. And so we're going to drag it here and put the sphere inside of here. It's going to be cloner based on the sphere. And we're going to put the capsule in the cloner. So it's going to clone the capsule on the sphere. So put random capsules on the sphere. Now I'm going to make the capsules here. We're going to make the capsules a little bit smaller and a little bit thinner. So put the capsule along the sphere. Even if the sphere is hidden, that'll kill it. But even if the sphere is hidden and the sphere doesn't exist, you can still see the capsules there. So let's take a look. Well, actually here, I'll click both these, turn these back on, so we can see the cloner is going on the object-based clone, and it's going based. The distribution is randomly on the surface of this, but we want to put this on the vertexes, which is going to put clones all along the vertexes. Well, now we're going to go here and transform these on the pitch and put them out like this. Amazing. So now we have these clones that look like this. Boom, like there. Now, even if we didn't have the sphere, again, if the sphere wasn't visible, we'd still have this. Oh man, we still have this happening like there. So now we can sort of see that this is rotated around the clone. Amazing. I'm going to say amazing a couple more times. It really is. And we're going to go back to there. So now we have this on the clone, and we have this separated the clone. But let's affect this. Okay, so let's go here to the cloner. Let's go here to effectors, Mograph effectors, and we're going to say, let's use a Python effector, and we're going to program in our own Python code with our Python. We're not going to do that. What are you, crazy? I don't know Python. Man, if you do, good for you, but man, this is a lot of stuff. Ooh, I mean, you could make your own effectors for all your own kind of things, but that's beyond me. So we're not going to use a Python effector at all. What we're going to do is we're going to do the cloner effector. Make sure you click on the cloner. Otherwise, it doesn't add the effector automatically in here. So if I'm not clicked on this and I added an effector in here, it's not going to apply it to this. You have to drag it in yourself. But we're going to go here to Mograph effectors, and we're going to choose the sound effector. Ooh, the sound effector? What does the sound effector does? Well, the sound effector is now on the cloner. So the cloner has a sound effector. You can turn it off if you want to, but we're going to go to the sound effector, and we're going to grab in a sound. So we're going to go to the effector controls and take a look at what the effector is going to do. The effector, in this case, is going to push out the y-axis a certain amount. Let's see. Yeah, the y-axis will shoot this out. Let's just say 100. Okay, well, I think this is the right axis. We'll see. If it's not, we'll figure it out. We're going to do the sound effector here. Under the effector, we're going to bring in a soundtrack. It asks you right here, do you want to add a soundtrack in here? I think we do. Let's load a sound. Let's go here to my hard drive here, and we're going to grab in something in terms of, let's see, I have something here called work material, and in work material I have music, and we have, let's see, let's do like something like sizzle music. Yeah, let's see what this sounds like. Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I want to make sure it's, yeah, cool, excellent. We're gonna grab the sizzle music, and we're gonna say open this. It's gonna ask us, do we want to save a copy of this? No, okay, sizzle music is there. And so here's the sizzle music. So the sizzle music is happening right down here. We can actually move this little control to decide how much of it we want to grab. And I think I want to grab lower, just so I'm touching a little bit of all of it. Sometimes I only want to touch the tips, and so I'll just put it here just to touch the tips. And so now when this plays, this will control the tips. And this will, every time the sound happens on the channels, it will equal a, you can actually control the frequency. It has a little probe here that grabs different frequencies here, but we're going to control all the frequencies. So now as this plays, this should change the height of this on the y-axis. Hold on, something's wrong. Let's take a look. So the effector's coming through here. The cloner has the effector of the sound effector. It is on. It is hitting. Let's just stretch this out a little bit more. So it's there. Yeah, now it's making some contact. I saw something moving here. There we go. Okay, so we're making some contact. Great. Now the sound effector is going like this. And we have this little animated sound ball. Kind of cool. I mean, kind of fun. Here, if we did this differently, we'll try this differently. We're going to go here. We're going to say, let's say instead of the cloner being based on a object, we're going to have just it based on a grid. So we're going to have it based on a grid. We're going to put the grid here. We're going to make this, let's say 30 by 1 by 30. We're going to change the transform controls to put them back on 0, so they're upright, and we're going to move them close together. So we're going to object here. We're going to move them close together like this, and we're going to move them close together like this. So we're going to have this random, layout of there. Great. And so now we're going to say this sound effector is going to do the same thing. So the sound effector comes through. It's going to move it on the y-axis, and it's going to move them up like this. Except now what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's go and say in the sound effector, we're going to add a field. And instead of adding a linear field, we're going to add a spherical field. And the spherical field is, I'm going to say, within the sphere, within where the sphere is, it's only going to affect where the sphere is. So here, ready for this, it's going to make this. I almost want to click away from there so it's not on the spherical field. Hold on a second. Yeah, I want to keep this so we don't even see the spherical field. We just see that. We go in here into filters and we could say turn off the fields, so we don't see the fields at all there. And just so it's fun. Let's increase the sound effectors parameters and just crank this up to like, yeah, much bigger. I think we need a bigger bump. Oh, exciting. We can make this, gotta turn off the music for a second. We can make the field bigger. Sorry. Now I can't see the field. Let's click on the field. Let's click on the field, the spherical field. So only within where the field is how it's being affected. We're going to make the field a little bit bigger. So it's only affecting the ones inside the field. Great. We'll have the field like there. And we can even go into here, the field, and go to color and mapping. Ooh, let's do the color and mapping for the sound. Spherical field, color mode. Set the color, but it's not doing. We can get rid of this sphere. So now we can say in the spherical field, the color mapping is enable color mapping. Let's do default. There we go. And we'll do based on color. There. And we'll have it there like so. I thought it was going to change colors, but it's apparently not. Being really difficult with me, but that's fine. That's fine. Be that way. Gradient. No, we'll just do color. Let's see. Is it making contact here? Interesting. Anyway, we have it there, and we have that connection. And we can move this around. So we could say, yeah, let's take this field, and we can animate this field to be like moving around. And we can do this actually while this is playing. We're going to go here on this and say, play. That'd be kind of fun. Just a random bouncing on the sound. Maybe we'll add in another control in the sound field to say, within the effector, it also rotates on the pitch. So these rotate this way. Like that. And so now here again, as this plays through, they move in a random direction based on what the sound's doing. And this could all be animated. I mean, I'm just moving around now, but this could all be animated and all these changes could be made. There's a lot of things we can do. And there's a lot of combinations of different things we can do with effectors. Obviously, there's different types of fields we can create, and there's all kinds of exploration. What's really interesting about this is that all the stuff you do, there's new stuff coming out all the time that people are doing. So people are playing with all these ideas. I don't want to show you everything, and I don't think I could, especially not within an hour, which is how long I like to make these lessons. But I want to show you that these things work, and there's 100 examples. But this is kind of sort of how it works. The idea of field color. There we go. There's my field color. Sorry, I'm just trying to field color off. And so now I have this control. That's kind of nice. That's playful. I like that. That's kind of fun. That was my mistake. So you could have it do this plus do a random, and there's some different controls you can make to have one affect the other. It gets really complicated and really involved, and there's a billion settings, but you can do some nice, cool things with this. Let's go through one other control here. So we played with cloner. There's still more we can do with cloner. There's still different other effectors we could play with cloner, and there's still some cool stuff we can do. But just to start off here, we'll start off fresh here. I'm going to go to frame default to start off clean. We're going to look at another control. So we looked at cloner. We looked at text. I want to look at fracture. And fracture is the ability to break an object into its pieces. Now, this might get a little bit overwhelming in terms of my controls inside of here. So let's play a little bit, see what we can come up with. Let's grab an object, and I'm going to go here into the controls, and we'll go in here into models. We'll get rid of chairs, and we'll go to something like electronics, and we'll grab something Maybe a TV. Maybe we'll grab a TV, some kind of flat screen TV. Now, this flat screen TV, we're going to grab this flat screen TV. I know the flat screen TV. The poor flat screen TV is made of different parts. So it has a power cable, it has an input and output controls, it has a back and a front and a whole bunch of things, and there's a whole bunch of controls in here. There's a bunch of buttons and different things. And there's all these different parts to this. And so we're going to take this flat screen TV. I know, deep breath. This poor flat screen TV. We're going to take this flat screen TV and we are going to put it into the fracture. Boom. We're going to put it in the fracture. And okay. So immediately, the fracture mode has some controls. The first one is what's called straight mode. The more complicated one is explode segments. So we're going to put in explode segments, and it does nothing. And that's because this desperately, the fracture says, I ain't doing nothing for you. I don't care. I want to work with some sense of some effector. I want an effector here. So let's go to effector and let's add something simple like a plane effector. And we're going to go here to plane effector, and we're going to add a plane effector, and it broke this into parts. And now, actually, you know what we're going to just do instead of plane effector? We're going to undo that. Let's be reasonable. Let's be reasonable people here. Let's go effectors and let's add a random. I think a random is going to be more fun. Let's be honest. A random effector is going to randomly break these into pieces. Now, this randomness is break here in terms of random position. So it moved the random position X, Y, and Z. We're going to turn off the Y position so it only moves in X and Z, and we're going to make the X position move into all these pieces. Look at all these poor little pieces. Oh man, look at them all over the place. Look, there's all these pieces. We broke into a whole bunch of pieces. I just want to bring in a physical sky just so I can really see the pieces highlighted in the light. Bam, just so we can see really. Oh man, look at all these pieces there. There's tiny little pieces here. Tiny little itty bitty pieces there. All the buttons, I mean, it's really small, but you can see all the buttons and different doohickeys, let's call them. Yeah, different pieces there, etc. And now we have this random effector. So we've randomly fractured these things. And now again, we can go to this random effector and go in here to fields and say, let's bring in a linear field. And this linear field, alphabetical linear field, will now say between here and here, it's either all apart or all together. And we can kind of build this all together. I almost feel like I want to go away from the flat screen TV and try something else. I'm just curious. I'm just being playful. Let's go back to electronics. I want to find something that has more, heavier duty pieces. The micro hi-fi. Ooh, what do you think? Yeah, let's try it. Let's grab this guy in here. This is going to download. It's going to take a second. Bunch of pieces here. This may overwhelm the system. We're going to put this into the fracture. Bam. We're going to fracture. Oh, I like this so much better. Look at that. That's so much cooler. Oh, we've broken into a million pieces here. I'm going to even get rid of the physical sky. I know. We don't even need you, physical sky. Sorry. Goodbye, physical sky. Goodbye, sky. I love it. Oh, look at all these pieces. Look at these big, ugly, messy pieces. This is like one of those hi-fi commercials, right? Or one of those stereo commercials, or one of those electronics commercials where it's like a bunch of pieces and then it's like they're all over the place. They're all like a big mess of stuff. And maybe we say, okay, let's randomize this. We'll also go into the random control. We'll say parameters. We'll randomize rotation. Yeah, we got to randomize rotation, right? So they're all in different combinations, different places, etc. They're all a big mess. They're all randomly twisted around, and they're all like, what is this thing? And then bam, oh, here it comes. Ready? Here it comes from the beginning here. We'll have this all randomized here. We'll take the field, the linear field. We'll go here and say coordinates. We'll have it here, and then slowly over 72 frames, this is going to come back together. Boom, and become a thing. And maybe we'll have this be animated here. Boom, and it's going to come to there. So it's going to be a bunch of pieces separated out, and it's going to form all together. Boom. There we go. We're going to zoom in really close so we can really see this here. So it feels very stereotastic. Explosion. Oh, man. That'd be really, really cool looking to have a stereo that just kind of formed into one big piece like that. Really kind of cool. Anyway, that's a thing we can do. That's again, is the only idea? No, but there's a whole bunch of other playful ideas we can do. There's a whole bunch of controls we can do of how we make clones, how we make fractures, how we build pieces into other things, and some fun we can have. And here's the truth. There's a whole bunch of other effectors. There's a ton of other effectors that we can use that do all kinds of craziness that Some make sense to me, some don't even make sense to me. Again, I'm not going to touch the Python one. I sort of understand some of the delay ones. There's some ideas that you can do to add a delay effector. So we can go in here into the random control. Sorry, go to the fracture, and in addition to the randomness effector, we can go in here and add a delay effector. And the delay effector will kind of have this be, well, it'll delay this. So now the fracture has a random and has a delay, and we can go to the delay effector. And the delay effector says, hey, let's just say, let's leave this at 50% here delay, and it will blend into here. And so whatever it's doing, it's going to adjust position, rotation, scale on a delay. So the parameters are position, scale. So you'll see this might animate a little bit differently. Yeah, a little bit there. We'll do it a slower delay here. So we'll go here and go to effector. We'll go to here to like 20%, 14%. Let's see how that works out. Yeah, it's a little bit different. But we can play, and there's different things we can play with, and there's different effectors we can do. Might put the delay effector there, and then we can say explode segments and connect. Well, let's leave it alone. Let's see, the delay effector, or sorry, the fracture. We can go to effectors, and then we can say put the delay before the random. Let's see. About the same thing. There's combinations and different things we can do and different games we can play. I'm going to show you one more thing because we have a little bit more time, and I'm going to go over some other things. We may go over another lesson of more Mograph stuff and more cool things you can do. But I just want to show you how the idea of Mograph works. And there's like so many different variations of ways you can play with stuff and different ideas you can explore. I just want to show you that it was there as an idea. We're going to Command N, make a new thing, and we're going to go here and we're going to say, let's make a box here. Let's grab a box, and we'll take this box like this. We'll make this like there, and we'll go to here. And we'll put some filleting on the edges here. Great. And so we have this shape here. There's something in here called a Voronoi fracture, and that's a weird thing. What's a Voronoi fracture? Well, this is just an object, right? I mean, it has basically one side. It's not made of anything here. So we're going to go here, and we're going to go to Mograph controls, and into the Mograph controls is something called the Voronoi fracture. We'll put the cube into the Voronoi fracture, and it's going to make it look like this. And this makes it into chunks. It builds us into chunks, and this is called using a Voronoi noise pattern. And you can see if you go in here into the object controls, it gives you some weighting controls. It asks you whether you want to colorize the fragments or create surfaces or whatever it may be, and you can have fragments there. But it has a control here called sources, and the sources consist of what's called a point generators. And these little dots, it basically puts dots randomly in here. You can change the number of dots. You can put more dots, and it would have more points. We'll turn the colorization back on. So we'll go back here to go to the colorized fragments so you can really see this. It won't edit this way. I mean, for now, it'll look this way. But if you put a material on here, it won't do that. We'll go to the point generation distribution, and we'll crank the number of points. Then we have a whole bunch of dots. Now it's more broken up into more pieces here. So we have this broken out there. And cool. So we have this broken in dots like so. And we can actually change some controls over here. So if you go into the transformation controls, you can actually change how the dots are spread out. So you can change the position of the dots and move them over like this or move them over like that. And you could say, let's change the scale of the dots on the x-axis and have them be wider. Make this like 20 or something, and now they're kind of more spread out differently. And there's some controls you can do with the rotation of the dots and how the dots are distributed. And you can actually use other things rather than point generators. So you can create other kinds of a shader generator or distribution source. There's a whole bunch of controls here. So what does this mean? So we're going to take this. We're going to say, let's take this and let's take material. And this is the material we're going to take something like concrete. That way, this will override the color fragmentation. So we're going to go here to the cube or the Voronoi fracture. We're going to say concrete and make this concrete. So here, when this renders, it'll render as a piece of concrete. So great, we have a piece of concrete. So now this Voronoi fracture says, hey, guess what? We have turned this into segments. We've turned this into chunks. And so here in the effector controls, we'll say in the effectors, man, let's go to our favorite friend, the random effector, and we'll say randomized effector, and now it's going to turn to random chunks. So now we have random chunks of concrete. Oh, man, this is exciting. This is intense. Look at these random chunks of concrete. Takes a while to render, but oh, boy. And now we can say, let's do this. Let's play a game just for fun. I know, this is so much fun. We're going to go here and say, in the Voronoi fracture, we want to add a random effector. In the random effector, we want to add a field. And we're going to take this field and say, okay, let's take a field and that field will be we could say let's take a linear field. Just for first, we'll take a linear field here. So now this linear field will control that we'll do it this way. We'll rotate it so that this way is together. This side is together, this side is apart. So now when it moves over, it's together. And now here, as this thing plays through, we can animate this to explode this out this way and erupt this way. Right? Like, boom, break this into a bunch of pieces. So now this is going to break open like this. And maybe we say in this randomized control, we'll randomize. Right now we're randomizing the scale. Let's clearly randomize the rotation because I think we really need to rotate these pieces a lot. And we're going to say on the X or maybe on the Y, we'll spread them apart really far apart. So it's going to be like really a whole lot. So now this field is going to be like, just break these all in pieces. That's kind of a cool animation. So we could do something like that. That's based on this random pattern of distribution here. Bam, it looks like there. Or we could do the reverse way. Let's do it this way. Let's say we don't have this. We're going to reverse this around and do this the other way. I know, craziness. 180. I'm holding down shift so it falls in increments of fives. And so now it's here. So now by here, it's going to be apart. And then we'll go here to the random field, but we'll also go to the Voronoi fracture and a plane effector. And the plane effector is not going to do anything for position. It's just going to go to scale, uniform scale, and make this -1. Okay, so now it's not there at all. So now it's invisible. Great. Okay. Cool. Deep breath. So now here, we're going to say the plane effector is controlled also by this linear field. So the linear field controls the scale and the rotation and the position. Okay, yeah. So now here, we're going to set this linear field to be animated. It's over here. And then again, over 72 frames, it's going to move to here, and it's going to come together and also be big and rotate and fall into place. Boom. And fall into this concrete that builds this concrete like there. And here, we're going to go to this point. We're going to animate this. We're going to move this over so we can see it. And now we're going to say, boom, it's going to come in like this. Boom, and fall into piece like there. I almost want to turn off the Voronoi fracture object, colorized fragments, and see this piece of concrete. So you can actually see what the heck this is doing. And now it's going to come in like this. Form these pieces together. Boom. But imagine once we render that out, I mean, how that's going to look. All these pieces are going to form and build into a piece of concrete. It's going to be amazing. That's some stuff. That's some stuff we can make. So it's all based on these controls that do something, whether it be a shader, whether it be a randomizer, whether it be just a simple plane, or whether it be some kind of other control, some other filter like a delay or like a push apart, which takes these things as actual physical pieces of geometry and makes sure they don't hit into each other. Any of these random effectors, and then within the effectors, you can put a field around it and control how it comes in or comes out. If we didn't do a linear field, if we said forget the linear field, no more linear field, now it doesn't exist anymore because it's been affected by the plane effector, we'll go here to a cone field. A cone field. Now the cone field, let's see what the cone field does. The cone field says, hey, this will, okay, so the cone field is on the plane. We need to do the cone field on the random as well. So now here, when the cone comes through, it kind of breaks, when the cone field comes through, wherever the cone exists, it breaks through like there. Now, it does heal itself after it comes through, which is interesting. So that's what the cone field does. The cone field says only where it exists, it's there. So we could take the cone field, we could say rotate the cone field this way, 9 degrees. And now here, where the cone is, it kind of breaks through. We'll open this up a little bit wider. This is this degrees here. We'll open this a little bit wider. There we go. And so we'll hit here and have this cone push through. and it would fall back apart and push back together. So let's see if we can change this. It does come apart and come back together. So even if we change this, let's just say, let's get rid of the plane effector here, and we're just going to add in the random effector. So we're going to go to random effector, and I'm just in fields. We're going to add a spherical field. And we'll try a spherical field, and this will have the same circumstances where the spherical field will come across, and after it leaves the spherical field, it comes back together. So there's some other controls that we have available to us. In here, we have these controls here, which can kind of affect the field in a certain way. And one of the ones that I think is decay. Decay is the one I think I want to use. Decay says if we have a decay set to normal at 100% before the spherical field, and then we change the effector strength up to like 90 something, just in a really high 80 something there. What's going to happen is that this spherical field, as it animates, it won't really show it to you now, but as it animates here, we're going to do this. We're going to say, let's take the spherical field here, coordinates, we're going to say on the position, we're going to go here, and then at the end of this, we're going to go here and let this animate. And as it animates, to here, it'll come down, and we're going to say animate there. This decay on this randomize this decay, maybe we'll crank it up even a little bit more, just up to like 90 something, really close there. And we'll have it like there. In here, spherical build is animated. We're going to go back to the beginning of this. This should take a little bit longer to fall back into place. So this can control this falling back into place. And so it has a little bit of delay there. So that's a little bit more playfulness. And so now we have even more things that we can do to kind of tweak this animation or to tweak how this is put together. It really gets kind of crazy. So you have both these random Mograph, tools, including the cloner and the fractioner and the Voronoi fracture. We can look at the matrix and the tracer and the other controls we have here available to us. And then you get the effectors that affect all those things. Then you get these fields that affect the effectors, the random effectors fields, and then you have all these different variations of different fields, of different shapes, of different things, Python fields, which gets even more programming, and then you get different controls like decay and delay and freeze, etc. And if you set decay, for example, to something like, I don't know, 100%, I think it will not return back after it breaks up. So it'll break up here and then stay broken. So that's kind of a permanent never returning back there. But if you set it to like 97%, then it would slowly control coming back into there. And there's a whole bunch of other controls and ways to kind of manipulate these things. And there's so much you can do with Mograph stuff. And like I said, I don't want to go into all of it because it would take days. I just want to give you a kind of a sampler platter of this because I think it's really cool. And I think there's some cool things you can do with it. So play with it, enjoy, experiment, try stuff out, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, try other things. And, there's always ways you can look stuff up and find other information out there, or shoot me an email. Maybe I can help you. But, keep trying, keep playing. I just want to show you the Mograph tools because they are really interesting and fun to explore. I'm going to keep playing with this all night and just see what I can come up with. I don't know. It's just enjoyable. I'm a nerd like that. Anyway, that's Mograph. We'll look at some other stuff inside of Cinema 4D. There's a lot more to look at, and we'll keep playing and keep making more tutorials. So until next time, enjoy.